Good afternoon. It's great to be here to talk. What an amazing day. I've been here since the very beginning and seen all the talks, and the ideas and the energy of this has been absolutely remarkable. So thank you to everyone who's done such a remarkable job through the day. I'm here to talk about the 10 traits of a successful 21st century arts festival. I added the word successful in there. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe because I was worried that I don't want to give you the 10 traits of an unsuccessful 21st century arts festival. And some of them you will recognise from things that have happened already today. Others, hopefully, there'll be some new ideas in there. I want to start off by saying what I'm not going to talk about, which I'm not going to talk about weekenders. Great festivals that we go to, have a fantastic time, music, wonderful. I'm also not talking about single art form festivals, festivals which rely on that one idea. So the group of people who share a passion and come together specifically to do that. What I'm going to talk about is the idea of the multi-arts city festival. I also have made the one schoolboy error, which is in a speech like this or in any kind of presentation, the only thing that can possibly go wrong is to give a number. To say, I'm going to say the 10 traits. If I hadn't have said 10, I could give you 6 and you go, that was nice 6 traits there. I've said 10, which is obviously a schoolboy error. I've also made the schoolboy error of not writing the final 2. On the grounds that there are 2 things that an audience wants at any time of the day, but particularly at the end of a day. And that is, on the one side, what they want is they want absolute certainty. They want confidence. They want to relax and think, we're in the hands of someone who's relaxed. They know what they're doing. Everything's going to be fine. What could possibly go wrong? And that's the one thing they want. The other thing they want is jeopardy. The belief this could go wrong at any moment. This person who you believe you're fine, you're relaxed, but he could fall on his arse at any given moment. So I'm trying to put together both confidence, relaxation. You can sit back and think this could be interesting, but also jeopardy. At the end, I'll only get to 7. What happens then? Where are the last 3? What are we going to do? We all go home slightly disappointed. So that's the jeopardy. There's a surprise there. The first thing I want to talk about is about the fact that festivals themselves are pretty unsustainable in terms of scale and idea. I work with a team of completely brilliant people year round, and we put on 23 days of work. Now, we've heard today about people who work their entire lives with whale sharks. We've heard about people whose entire life is built around the moment of finding some shoes. These are vital things to do. So at this moment, the 23 days a year doesn't sound quite as bad as it did earlier, except they're key things that change the world, and I'll return to that a bit later. Our 23 days have to be extraordinary, otherwise we've spent about 49 weeks doing something that wasn't really worth it. So festivals are unsustainable and unjustifiable, and if you ignore the fact that virtually every great artist who ever played in any city for the first time played at a festival, if you ignore the fact that some of the best work commissioned, some of the best work written, some of the best work presented, some of the most exciting ideas that have come together which no one saw coming, if you put that aside, if you put aside the fact that they have an economic multiplier which is greater than any other part of the arts, if you ignore the fact they change the way people perceive their own city, other people's cities, the way people recruit people, and the fact that they make our lives worth living for the other 50 weeks of the year, if you put those things aside, there's absolutely no justification for festivals. And I'd like to acknowledge that and admit that that's a bit sad. Festivals, and this is my first point really, my first trait of the 21st century festival is that festivals are like bumblebees. Go with me, give me just a moment on this one. Festivals are like bumblebees because when you study them, if you sit down, put them on paper, you look at them, there's absolutely no way this can work. There's no way it can evolve, there's no way it can survive. The body is way too big, the wings are too small, it'll never get off the ground. That's the bumblebee, not the festival. But the metaphor holds. Anyone who understands physics, economics, or bumblebees will tell you, when they look at a festival, the festival can't work, it's not possible. And yet they do, and then they go around and they pollinate. Festivals go from idea to idea, from community to community. They communicate with everyone. They travel around and they help things grow and they help ideas grow and they develop new connections. And that's the idea for me why festivals are like bumblebees. There's also an element which is that festivals can't attack anyone. They're sort of quite big and they're quite cumbersome, and so if they actually go in and have a go at anyone, if they sting someone, they die. I kind of feel like sports, a little bit waspy, but the arts and festivals, that was unfair, see? There was absolutely no reason at that moment for me to have a go at sports. I didn't even know I was going to do it myself. As I got towards it, I thought, I can feel the sport thing coming, I can feel my blood rising, I've learned about sports psychology, I might just do this. And then I did. Bumblebees. The second element of it is about the rights of engagement and the rules of engagement. For the past 2,000 years, 3,000 years, 4,000 years, people have engaged with the arts and culture in the same way. They've basically gathered at 7:30 at night in the slopey bit next to the flat bit to see something. It's happened forever, and that's fantastic. There's a comedian who used to live in a city that had a major festival, and he said, you don't need the programme of the festival, just write on the back of your hand, 7:30, Old Church, string quartet. And that has always had an element of truth, but the big difference for the 21st century festival is the way that audiences gather has changed, the way that revolutions happen has changed, the way people come together has totally changed. Nowadays, you're as likely to find out on Twitter or Facebook or be tweeted where to go. You're as likely to be told, meet about 4 o'clock, but I'll text you next to the big pile of rice. And that's a big change in the way that festivals have gone. The third point is once you've met, the way that the audience and the festival communicate and collaborate. Again, for millennia, festivals went out. People like me, not exactly like me, and it wasn't me, but people like me, went out and they programmed 23 days of work or so. And then they published it. People bought it. People went. They enjoyed it or they didn't enjoy it, then they read the reviews and they agreed or disagreed with the reviews, talked to their friends. The next year, it was published again. They read it, they did the whole thing. Now, someone like me, in this case it is actually me sometimes, programs the festival, we publish it. You read about it, you tweet about it, you tell me you think bits are great, you tell me you think bits are terrible. I and my team go away and go, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And we begin to make tweaks. And so from a linear pattern of programming, it's become a circular pattern of programming. And so from having the idea of just you take it, you buy, you wait for the review, you review the program, then you review the show itself, then you review the review. And this third element is all about the circularity of it. And then the actual way that you connect with different platforms. The fourth story about 21st century festivals for me is that they've changed from being binary states to having a digital element. So whilst there was always work that would be music or theatre or dance, nowadays that could just as easily be on an iPad or an iPhone, other technologies available, as it could be on a stage. But, and this is vital and has also been said today, I think we have to remember there is no platform yet invented that can turn shit art into great art. Putting something on an iPhone or an iPad or a tablet doesn't make it great. Putting something in a podcast doesn't make it fascinating. It's about the idea, the technique, the technology. Someone like Brian Eno makes a great work of art that's on an iPad. Of course he did. He made a great work of art way before he was using the iPad. So this is all about the different moments of technology and looking at old school. I'm a big fan of old school. I work in the 21st century. As Eddie said earlier, we are past midnight now, so we have to think about the pace. However, Angry Birds is a great game, one of the great games. I used to play Angry Birds 25 years ago. I played old school Angry Birds. What we would do is we would pile boxes of cereals and bottles and cans as high as we possibly could, get old fruit and throw it at them and see if we could knock it all over. We called it Angry Shopkeepers until we decided to move it outside, which was one of the better things we did. But the idea that something that has always been great continues to be great is important. The fifth element about festivals for me is also the way that we talk about them and talk to each other, and what we do when we get there, followed by what we're allowed to do. Festivals have an amazing license. They have a license to play, to do things that normally wouldn't be accepted. So if you have, for example, a Jubilee, Jubilees are great. Everyone loves the Jubilee. So for Jubilee, you can have Brian May on a castle with a guitar. That's superb. I love running around with live flame as much as the next man, but if all of the nations on earth have gathered together under the Olympic flag once every 4 years since the Greeks did that, I think more than a flame is important. So I think you can do more than that. And with a festival, you say, we're going to drop 2 tons of feathers onto a bunch of people, and everyone goes, it's the festival. That's great. Where are you going to do it? Right outside Council House. Oh, okay, yeah, that's great. That's great. We're excited, we're pumped about that. And that is only allowed in the name of festivals. I've dropped feathers on people. I have turned the National Theatre into a pyrotechnical birthday cake. There was only a very, very small fire. It was a small blind. Nobody was injured. It didn't cost that much. I'd like to lay that to rest right now. I've filled whole hillsides full of fire, and I've done the most amazing things. And that is one of the great joys. In my first festival in the UK, I hung 9 Frenchmen off a crane playing music. Now, and I acknowledge what I'm about to say is a bad thing, but if you really want to be loved by an English audience, you kind of say to them, I'm going to hang 7 Frenchmen off a crane. So that's really bad. Now, the question now is, anybody know what number I'm up to? 7? 7? Did someone say 8? 8, I hear you say. Stories and questions. I've got a set list down here, you see. If it's good enough for Tom York, it's good enough for me. I've got a set list of the 8, although the 9 and 10 aren't on there, but the 8 are. Stories and the questions we can ask. I think the 21st Century Festival, we're beyond answering questions all the time. I think we're about asking them. We're about saying, what are we wanting to learn? What is the essence of our place? And if we don't have that, I don't think we have to answer the questions, but we do have to ask them. Number 7, for those of you who were observing, and I'm going back now because I realise I missed that. Thomas Paine, the great writer who wrote Rights of Man, Thomas Paine said, you can borrow ideas, but you can't borrow situations. So, in an increasingly global world, our job is to be specific to the place we are in the 21st Century Festival. It's not enough to just become general. We have to talk about here, right now. There are great festivals all over the world, and the best ones are specific to where they are. And now we definitely, having gone back for 7, get to 9. And I have a few that I was thinking I might talk about, depending on how the reaction was and what took my mind. But really, I think the point of spontaneity is the point. You start a festival not knowing the journey. In the olden days, you would know what you were going to listen to. You'd listen to it, you'd enjoy it or not, and you'd go home. Nowadays, so many festival experiences involve going to something, not knowing what it will be, and you learn something or you go on a journey. Enrique Vargas said, who is the director of a show called Oraculus, said, unless you can leave the path, how can you know what you will find? Taylor Mack, the performance artist from New York, also talks about surprise in festivals, and there has to be a surprise. You've got to be prepared, though, for the surprise. The surprise is that obviously I'm making up 9 and 10, and they have a degree of spontaneity, and that's interesting and exciting, and maybe I'm not going to fail, but maybe I still am, because I haven't got to 10 yet. However, you've got to be prepared for that. You don't want a sudden surprise. You want a prepared surprise. And my final thing about the 10 traits would be that we look to the future and we always want the next festival. We want to be excited about what is still to come. You can't be satisfied. Festivals are the extreme sports of the arts. You start a festival and you just plow into it. And you go as fast as you can and as hard as you can. And if you didn't hit something, if you didn't see something, if you'd missed something, if you're tired, exhausted, that's how they're meant to be. However, as you're going through that journey, you want to look to something new. You want to look to something exciting. And so, the 10th trait of the festival, the 21st Century Festival, I'll tell you about next time I see you. That's all I've got. I think there is an important role that festivals play in the world. I do genuinely think they are vital. And they're vital because they inspire, they excite, and they change the world we live in. They change the way we see things. One of the very few insults or complaints people have about festivals is, why is public subsidy spent on that when they don't cure cancer, they don't change the world in that way? And the answer is, festivals don't cure cancer. I won't cure cancer, but somebody will. There are people working right now in laboratories on this campus and around the world to cure cancer, and somebody will cure cancer. And I would like to bet that that person listens to music every evening, and they go home and they read, and they go to festivals, and they go to films, and they go to cinema. They get embroiled in all of that part of the world because it inspires them. It doesn't save lives, but it makes lives worth saving. So I'm not going to cure cancer. I have a drama degree from Exeter University, which has a quite bad medical research record. So I am clearly not going to cure cancer, but somebody will, and I promise you this, we will get their backs. Thank you very much.